Good afternoon, colleagues, and welcome to this training session where we're going to give an understanding of the performance and assessment criteria for Pearson A-level music. As Mam just said, please ensure you remain muted and you use the chat function to contact me during the session, and there'll hopefully be lots of opportunity for us to interact as we engage in some standardised material from previous exam seasons. Just going to close the chat function a second. Okay, so I'll begin briefly by covering the requirements of the specification before going on to review the content of the assessment criteria. I will then talk through the assessment of some recitals, explaining the marks and how they're awarded before giving you the opportunity to apply the assessment criteria for yourselves. There should be plenty of time for questions as we proceed and at the end. However, I thought it'd be fun and helpful for me to know a little bit more about the delegates that we've got in the session this evening. So if you would like to open the chat function and introduce yourselves and give us an idea of how long you've been teaching music and preparing candidates for A-level music, and if there is anything particular you'd like me to cover in the training this afternoon, so any particular outcomes that you're hoping to get from this training. Who's going to be brave and be the first one? Thank you so much, Colton. Welcome to the training. You've been teaching music for 6 years, originally from the US, and your second year of teaching A-level music here in this country. Well, welcome to the training today. I hope this is really useful for you. You're more than welcome. Just give everyone a couple of moments just to introduce themselves and tell us how long they've been preparing candidates for this exam. If there's anything specific you wish me to cover in the training today, make sure you pop that in the chat as well, and I'll do my best to make sure we cover everything that you want. Good evening, Johnny. Good evening, Rochelle. Welcome. It's your second year of teaching A-level music. Welcome to the training today. You're more than welcome. And Lauren, hi Lauren, welcome. First year of teaching in Spain. Welcome. And Irini, we've got you teaching A-level music since 2011, currently in a British international school in Cyprus. Cool. We are international tonight. I'm here in, I'd say sunny, but sort of cloudy Deptford in Lewisham in southeast London. I'm still in school at the moment, so I'm really looking forward to working with you all. So we've got colleagues joining us from the UK, we've got colleagues joining us from Spain, colleagues joining us from Cyprus. You're all absolutely welcome. Okay, I'm going to move on. The chat function is open and it is yours to use throughout the session. So any questions at all, do feel free to pop them in the chat and I'll gladly answer anything that you want. Let's move on. So, first little part of this presentation is about what the specification entails. Hi Sue, welcome. Just saw you in the chat there. Teaching A-level music for a long time, but changed to school this year, so new to Edexcel, so welcome, previously on AQA. Fantastic, welcome Sue, thank you for that. Okay, so the specification requirements. Component 1, performing, is designed to meet the fully assessment objective 1 for GCE A-level music, which is to interpret musical ideas through performing with technical and expressive control and understanding style and context. This forms 30% of the overall A-level. The requirements are as follows. Candidates must perform a minimum of one piece of music live and uninterrupted. They must perform as solo, whether accompanied or not, or as part of an ensemble, or as an improvisation, or a realization using music technology, or a combination of these, and to perform for a minimum of 8 minutes of music. A solo performance may be on any instrument or voice and in any style. Music that was written with accompaniment must be performed with that accompaniment. Of course, where there is an accompaniment for orchestra, piano transcriptions are acceptable. Backing tracks are also acceptable, so long as the part assessed is not as audible as over the backing track. An ensemble performance must consist of 2 or more people performing undoubled, simultaneously sounding independent parts. These may be with or without additional accompaniment and may be on any instrument or voice. Candidates presenting an ensemble performance are assessed on the same basis as soloists. They are also assessed on their attention to balance, and they should understand how to interact with and react to the other ensemble performers. Candidates who choose to present an improvisation should give an accurate performance of the stimulus and go on to exploit and develop its material. As with other candidates, they will be assessed on the instrumental tone and technique, the fluency of performance, and its effect in terms of style, communication, interpretation, and style. Candidates presenting a performance using a music technology may use synthesizers, virtual instruments, and amplified instruments such as guitars using pedals, including loop pedals, audio samples, and other processors. Teachers are expected to monitor the progress of their students the progress of their candidates in performance in order to authenticate that it's the candidate's own and unaided work. The performance for each candidate must be recorded on or after the 1st of March and in time for uploading to Learner Work Transfer by the 15th of May each year. The recording should take place in the presence of an audience or at least 2 other people, which may include the teacher. Announcements are no longer required. The performance should not be edited in any way, but it is permissible for a candidate to re-record the whole recital within the time frame set out above and at the convenience of the centre. The submission for each candidate should consist of 3 files: a score or scores of all the music being performed, the recording, and the performance authentication sheet. Scores may include, in addition to conventionally notated pieces, lead sheets and other material, but these should be sufficient to inform the examiner to form a fair assessment of their accuracy of playing or singing. The performance authentication sheet must have clear and accurate information as to the work or the works being performed, including the name of the composer and the title of the piece. A number or tempo marking may be necessary to identify individual movement or movements from a sonata or suite. Though difficulty levels are the responsibility of the examiner to determine, it is often helpful to add this information for each separate item and the names of the exam board for who lists the piece appears, especially in the cases where it's taken from lesser known sources. In the case of a piece which is not known by syllabuses of any of boards approved by Ofqual, centres may wish to estimate the difficulty level. If they wish to do so, they should make it clear that this is an estimate only. The assessment criteria. Assessment grid, The assessment criteria. Recitals are assessed as a whole and not a series of individual pieces where work with more than one is performed. For each recital, we use 3 sets of assessment criteria known as the grids. Please find the specification and go to page 20. I believe also the grids are in your packs as well, so it's one of the uploads in the packs, it's got performance assessment grids. Here you will find the 3 grids, and I will talk through these and the application of difficulty level scaling in detail in a moment. So if you want to just get that document open, it is in the delegate pack. It's a one-side A4 sheet. Each grid focuses on a different aspect of the performance. It provides 6 graded levels of assessment and is marked out of 16 marks, giving a total raw mark of 48. It is useful in the initial stages of assessment to note that the generic terms set alongside each level from 1 to 6, poor, limited, basic, convincing, assured, and outstanding. Though any given recital may immediately suggest one of these broad descriptors, examiners are asked to work from a top downwards. Once the appropriate level has been decided, performances which match the descriptors for that level are in full are awarded the top mark for that level. Where performances fall short of those descriptors, but not as much to take it a level below, a lower mark in that level is awarded. Inevitably, many recitals vary in standard, even within the same piece. In such cases, a best fit mark must be awarded, but it's not so noted that the descriptors, even up to level 5, do not indicate possible shortcomings or reservations. Once the raw mark has been established, the difficulty level scaling is then applied and the resulting mark is marked out of 60. There's a lot of information there that we've just gone through, and if you've got your descriptor sheet in front of you, You're looking the level 1 to 6 on the left-hand side. It says poor, limited, basic, convincing, assured, and outstanding. So they're the descriptors which we go by. And then, as I said in the commentary there, if it meets the descriptor fully, it is given the top mark in each of those bands. And then where it moves down is where there's less consistency around meeting those full criteria. Where the recitals vary, so where you've got where maybe one of the pieces it fits the descriptors for convincing, but maybe one of the other pieces it doesn't not quite as convincing. That's where the best fit approach is used, to make sure that that is a fair mark that balances the strengths of the recital, but also the weaknesses that we hear. Just keeping an eye on the chat, making sure anyone has got any questions. If you have, please feel free to use it. Okay, we're now going to turn our attention to Assessment Grid 1, which is headed Technical Control and Technique. The first and third descriptors of each levels 1 to 5 list the varying aspects of technical control that may be applied to various instruments or voices. These include coordination of the hands on a keyboard instrument, hands or feet for organists, finger work on many different instruments, breath control, obviously for singers and wind instrumentalists, diction, or more accurately, enunciation for singers, pedalling for pianists and for organists, and, very importantly, intonation for string players, wind players, and singers. The third description also covers the handling of sonority, or the quality of tone that the candidate produces, a major aspect of technique for all performers. In stronger submissions, it's expected that it will also be coupled with an awareness of tonal contrast. The second descriptor in levels 1 to 5 concerns the degree of overall technical control displayed by the candidate. Are the demands of the piece or pieces within the capacity of the performer? At level 5, they are expected to be fully within the current ability of the performer, with no reservations. At level 6, this descriptor drops out, implying there can be no question about it. Candidates and their teachers are free to choose from widely across the repertoire for their instrument or voice, and should take great care in doing so. More will be said on this matter when we come to discuss difficulty level scaling later. So that's grid 1. Now we'll talk about assessment grid 2. This is headed Technical Control of Accuracy and Expressive Control Fluency. The key words are the ones that are here in brackets. Accuracy covers mainly errors of pitch and errors of rhythm. Fluency will be compromised by hesitation and or omission. Serious failings in either of both of these respects may lead further to a wider loss of coherence. Though examiners will take care not to exact a second penalty for features of performance which have already been penalised under Grid 1, for example, places where the demands are beyond the ability of the current performer, there may sometimes be sufficient to overlap under both these grids to justify some loss of marks on both. Candidates who opt to submit an improvisation or who choose an item which the improvisation plays a substantial part, we're considering here rock school pieces, which I know lots of people use in these assessments. These will be assessed under the descriptors in italics appropriate for those submissions, as well as the descriptors which apply to fluency. Likewise, balance in ensemble performances are covered by the last descriptor in each level, also in italics, in addition to the descriptors which apply to accuracy and fluency. So that is assessment grid 2. Now we're on to assessment grid 3. The heading here is expressive control, style and context. In other words, the aspects of the performance covered including interpretation in all respects, not only indicators which a composer may have added to the score, but also the wider issues of style and historical context where appropriate. The first descriptor at every level here refers to consistency of tempo. Of course, rubato where appropriate and where handled will be rewarded rather than penalised, but its use will be assessed in style and period relevant to the item in mind. Linked to this first descriptor is an important addition in italics for ensemble performances, covering the candidate's ability to combine with and to react to other performances in the ensemble. The second and third descriptors from level 2 to level 5 reference to dynamics, phrasing, articulation, and it should be noted here that descriptors include references to opportunities notated or otherwise being missed. These contribute to the overall shaping of the musical performance and to the degree of success achieved in communicating the music idiomatically. It should be further noted that descriptors for each of the 6 levels are headed by more general phrase, providing a summary of the general interpretive effect expected at each level. These rise by steps from very few interpretive skills at level 1 to a mature, individual, and imaginative interpretation at level 6. So that's a brief commentary on the 3 grids which we work to. If you do have any questions, please feel free to chuck them into the chat. I'm more than happy to answer that. I'm now going to move on to talking a little bit about difficulty levels, which can prove to be one of the harder things to really get your head around. So hopefully we'll cover that. And again, if you've got questions, don't hesitate to ask. So difficulty levels. We have already mentioned the process of scaling to acknowledge the varying difficulty of items that a candidate may choose to play. The standard level of difficulty for A-level music is grade 7, as indicated by the various syllabuses recognised by institutions that offer exams, usually from grade 1 to grade 8 and to diplomas beyond that. Pieces that may be included in such syllabuses for grade 8 or higher are categorised as more difficult. The Pearson Edexcel difficulty level scaling process raises the maximum raw mark out of 48 for these 2 categories to 60. In the case of standard level difficulty, the final mark of 60 is only achieved when the mark of 48 out of 48 is achieved. More difficult recitals reach the full mark of 60 with a raw mark of 40 or more to be out of 48. Recitals of grade 6 pieces recitals of grade 6 pieces or less are rated as less difficult and are not scaled at all. Examiners assess the difficulty level of the recital based on the average, taking into consideration the relative length of performances. How does this work in practice? Recitals often include items of varying difficulty levels, typically, for example, a grade 8 piece together with a grade 7 piece. In such a case, the performance as a whole is rated as more difficult, so long as the grade 8 piece or pieces has a duration of at least half the required time of the recital. For example, 4 minutes. Similarly, a recital which has a grade 7 piece of 4 minutes in duration, together with a piece or pieces of grade 6 difficulty level, would be rated as standard level. It must be emphasised that the responsibility for deciding on the difficulty level for recital rests with your examiner. Though as previously indicated, information on the PAS form, Performance Authentication Sheet, as to appropriate difficulty levels may be helpful. Candidates with advice from their teachers are responsible for their choice of repertoire for this component of the A-level examination. They may be tempted by the operation of the difficulty level scaling to choose a programme that seems to be an easy path to full marks. For example, a raw mark of 40 with a more difficult scaling would rise to 60. However, if the grade 8 pieces prove to be not quite within the candidate's capacity and the raw marks for each of those grids drop to the middle of level 5 to the middle of level 4, only 1 or 2 places where the demand for music are beyond the current ability of the performer, the raw mark would reach only 30 or 31, which at more difficult becomes 45 to 47. The same candidate, playing standard level repertoire and achieving a mark of 40, would find that would be raised to 50 under the scaling process. It cannot be overemphasised that careful choice of repertoire is an important part of preparing for A-level music. This extends well beyond any tactics that may be employed with regard to difficulty level scaling mechanisms. Candidates should feel comfortable with their choices not only technically, but directly as it affects their assessment under Grid 1, but also emotionally in terms of their understanding, for example, the text of a song, and in terms of their knowledge of style and context of their repertoire. In particular, brass players and singers are advised to bear in mind the physical demands of 8 or more minutes of continuous performance. For these candidates, repertoire choice may have an important impact on their final result. So that's a brief discussion there around difficulty levels, and it is really important to emphasise the fact that when candidates are presenting the split recital, so you've got a grade 8 pieces and grade 7 pieces, we're looking for that greater than the significant majority being at the higher level to achieve the higher grade. So we did say in the commentary there that it was looking at greater than 4 minutes out of 8 minute recital would need to be at the higher level for it to be given the higher, more difficult scaling. Again, that can prove to be difficult when you've got pieces of grade 8, grade 7, and even grade 6 in a recital as well, but we always use the best fit approach in those cases. Okay, we're now going to move on to understanding the criteria. We're actually going to hear some examples, and these have all come from June 2024. So these are live examples from the previous exam series. Piano and voice remain the most popular entries, but overall, a very wide range of instruments and styles were covered by candidates. In the time we have, we will only see a little of that variety, but on the other hand, our examples will cover a fairly wide range of instruments, standard and achievement. You should have already received the audio files and PDFs and score to play for yourself during this training session. When we've done this training before, I have played the audio through Zoom, and it has worked really well. But what I won't do is I won't do the music because I know people like to read music in different ways. They have to turn the pages, reading ahead, etc. So the way we will do this is, if it's okay with everybody, I'll play the audio through the MacBook, and you can listen with me. That helps us to keep track of time. But if you're happy to turn the pages yourselves and keep an eye on the scores, that would be absolutely fantastic. Okay, so the first performance we're going to hear is the first movement of Joseph Horowitz's Euphonium Concerto. That is candidate 1 in the audio pack. The recital consisted of the first and second movements of the concerto with a total duration of 11 minutes and 45 seconds. As our time is rather restricted, I'm going to suggest that we only listen to the first movement. Okay, so as I said, I'm going to play the audio through the computer. We'll listen to the first movement and then we will pause. What I'd like you to do when you're doing this is just have a little think about those level descriptors that we talked about, the limited, basic, convincing, assured. Have those in mind and start thinking about, marks for those 3 grids. And then but this one, I'm not going to ask for marks. I'm just going to be giving the giving the commentary and the marks out. Just going to see, thank you very much, Jessica. Just seen your question in the chat there. In the past, a colleague had a few students who all performed at grade 6 pieces and were awarded nearly full marks. However, the examiner report downgraded the overall marks because they didn't agree. Will students be penalised for doing grade 6? The challenge with grade 6 pieces, Jessica, and thank you so much for your question. The problem with grade 6, or the challenge with grade 6 pieces, is about to what extent they can reach the full mark in the grids. Because sometimes the grade 6, and we've even had this with great singers that have presented standard grade 5 level pieces, it's about whether they can actually reach the demand. Because the pieces are quite simplistic sometimes, they can't actually reach the top bands of marks because they are a little bit simplistic, and it's unfair to give a full mark for something when they're not required to demonstrate the required technique. In cases like that, it's a really good idea to, you can ask the expert on Pearson. So if you've got questions around specific repertoire, you can ask the expert, which is the team leader from it's the team leaders from the performing papers, so they would be able to look at that and give you advice about what that would look like. So I think you're right, grade 6 may sound full marky, but actually the reality is it's about balancing the whole specification and whether it's fair to give full marks to something that's a lot easier. So best advice there is to go to ask the expert. Thank you, Jessica, great. So now hopefully the sound's going to work. I'm going to play for you. This will be the Horowitz or Euphonium. Just to let you know, there's a bit of a lead time, so I'll hit play. There isn't music for a little bit. So here we go. Should hear the audio now. Oh, sorry, something happened with the audio there. Just try again. I'm very sorry, colleagues. Just restarting it now. Don't know what happened. Should start the audio now. Okay. So we'll just a brief commentary about this piece. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this one, definitely. Candidate's chosen a challenging piece, but this has no bearing on how we approach listening to this performance, neither raising our expectations because of the challenge or lowering them to make allowances. Every assessment, whatever the standard of difficulty, is made on the same basis. Only when the difficulty level is applied after the raw mark has been decided does the degree of challenge of the repertoire have any bearing on the assessment. So in other words there, what we mean is we always mark using the 3 grids first, and then we scale at the end. It's never a consideration of the level of difficulty first. In this case, the candidate has met the demands of the music in almost every respect. Almost every respect, though not wholly, with one or two small reservations. Even so, the playing of this is outstanding, and thus we consider a mark at level 6 on each grid. For grid 1, the control of the instrument is almost complete. There are just 1 or 2 moments where the more rapid passages, where not every single note emerges clearly. These small blemishes, particularly the scale in bar 47, are not sufficient to take the mark down to below, but nonetheless justify the lower mark at level 6. Equally, as regards the second descriptor for level 6, we note that the sonority, or the handling sonority, is outstanding across every pitch range, and the control of intonation is very high. The level 6 descriptor covering intonation allows for 1 or 2 out-of-tune notes, though in such cases it indicates that the mark might not be needed for the lower of the 2 available at that level. For both descriptors, a mark of 15 is appropriate here. For grid 2, the mark awarded again was 15, but the lower mark at level 6. On the basis of the first movement alone, we might have awarded 16, but there are 1 or 2 minor errors in the second movement which account for the award of the lower of the 2 marks available at level 6. For grid 3, again, level 6 was immediately suggested by so many aspects of the performance. This observation of various tempo changes indicated in the score was excellent, and there was also a very full response to the demands of the second descriptor, effective communication that is idiomatic and musically shaped, with a consistent use of dynamics, phrasing, and articulation to shape the performance. There was no reason not to award the full mark of 16 for this grid, so it is pleasing to be able to do so. The difficulty level was grade 9, that's diploma level, so the total raw mark of 46 was raised to 60 out of 60 for the final mark, easily within the A-star boundary. So that's our first candidate. It's got the euphonium concerto there and a really lovely performance there to start off our evening together. I'm going to move forward to the second candidate now. This is a male candidate presenting a programme of songs by Vaughan Williams, Ivor Gurney, Bernstein and Robert Schumann. I'm going to play the recital now fully. Okay, so this is candidate 2. So if you want to get your scores open, I'm going to do so too. This is candidate 2. Just seeing if there's a comment about difficulty levels here. This is overall a more difficult recital, just for your notes if you wish to be making that. So I've got these 3 songs and it is scaled at more difficult. So here we go, this is
Give to me the life I love, let the life go by me. Give the jolly heaven above, and the byway nigh me. Bed in the bush with stars to see, bread I dip in the river. There's the life for a man like me. There's the life for soon or late, let what will be only. Give the face of earth around, and the road before me. Wealth I seek, not hope, no love, nor a friend to know me. All I seek the heaven above, and the road below. Oh, let autumn fall on me, where afield I linger, silencing the bird on tree, biting the blue finger, white as milk, the frosty field, warm the fireside heaven. Not to autumn shall I yield, not to winter even. Let the blow for soon or late, let what will be o'er me. Give the face of earth around and the road before me. Wealth I ask not, hope nor love, nor a friend to know me. All I ask, the heaven above, and the road below. Du meine Seele, du mein Herz, du meine Warnung, du mein Schmerz, du meine Welt, in der ich lebe, mein Himmel, du reinig schwebe, oh du mein Grab, in das hinab ich ewig meinen Kummer gab. Du bist die Ruhe, du bist der Frieden, du bist von Himmel mir beschieden, dass du mich liebst, macht mich mir weg, dein Blick hat mir von mir weggelegt, du hebst mich lieber über mich, mein guter Geist, mein besseres Du meine Seele, du mein Herz, du meine Warnung, du mein Schmerz, du meine Welt, in der ich lebe, mein Himmel, du reinig schwebe, mein guter Geist, mein besseres Ich.
I'm terribly sorry, the audio has just cut out again. Let me just, I'm just going to load it up and just skip to the place. I'm so sorry. If you want to prepare the next song, I'm really, really sorry that's cut out. I'll just move that forward for you now. Just loading it, 1 second. Okay. Okay, and here we go with the third piece.
Come sleep, and with thy sweet deceit Let some pleasing dream beguile all my fancies, that from thence I may feel an influence. Oh, my powers of care bereaving. Though but a shadow, but a sliding, let me know some little joy. We that suffer long annoy are contented with a thought through an idle fancy. Oh, let my joys have some abiding. Oh, let my joys have some abiding. Could be, who knows? There's something due any day. I will know right away, soon as it shows. It making cannonball and down through the sky, gleaming inside, bright as a rose. Who knows? It's only just out of reach, down the block on a beach, under a tree. I got a feeling there's a miracle due, gonna come true, coming to me. Could it be? Yes, it could. Something's coming, something good. If I can wait, something's coming. I know what it is, but it is gonna be great. With a click, with a shock, phone will jingle, door will knock. Open the latch. Something's coming, don't know when, but it soon. Catch the moon, one hand to catch. Around the corner, or whistling down the river. Come on, deliver to me. Will it be? Yes, it will. Maybe just by holding still, it'll be there. Come on, something, come on in. Don't be shy, meet a guy, put up a chair. The air is humming, and something great is coming. Who knows? It's only just out of reach, down the block on a beach, maybe tonight.
Okay, just take a moment there to just consider that recital, and welcome to those colleagues joining us. We're just talking about Candidate 2. This is some marked work from Series 2024, and we're just considering the application of the 3 grids. So, that was a recital of, just listening to it again. There's a sort of parts of that are really good, and there's some parts of that which the candidate's really finding quite difficult. So let's think about grid 1. The technical control was considered only here to be basic, the performance appearing to meet all the descriptors for level 3. Breath control was perhaps slightly better than basic, but diction was sometimes questionable, especially as regards to the formation of vowels. There are several places where the demands of the music were beyond the current ability of the performer, mostly at the high and low extremes of compass. The handling of sonority was marred by some harsh tone, particularly in the upper register, and there were many notes out of tune, especially at the opening of the gurney. When a performance appears to meet all the descriptors of a particular level, as here, the top mark for that level is awarded. So for this grid, the mark was 8. For grid 2, accuracy and fluency, you will probably have noticed a number of small, mainly rhythmic slips, and may have found that these did not have a great impact on the overall success of the performance. Examiners decided that though they might have justified a mark at the top of level 4, the fluency and lack of omission in the recital took it to the bottom of the level above, so level 5. So a mark of 12 was awarded. In respect of grid 3, expressive control, this was judged to be a confident and engaging interpretation, so level 4. There were a few inconsistencies of tempo, but the changes in speed in the Schumann did not seem to be convincingly handled. There was some use of dynamics and phrasing and articulation to shape the performance, but some opportunities were missed, for example the pianissimo marking in the Vaughan Williams. Notice that the perceived shortcomings, as well as the positive qualities of the recital, are covered by the descriptors for level 4, so a full mark of 11 was awarded, giving a total of 31. This recital was rated as more difficult in terms of difficulty level, so the raw mark of 31 out of 48 goes up to 47 out of 60. So that was candidate 2. And again, if anyone's got any questions or they want clarification about how any of those marks were awarded, I'm more than happy to do that. So please pop that in the chat. And I also hope you're enjoying hearing the variety of music, because next we've got something very different. We've got a drum kit performance. And this will be the last one we're going to do where there's standard, we're going to just give out the marks. The next part we're going to have a little go at doing it ourselves. So finally we've got a drum kit performance. We've got Rush and Black Sabbath, which is a grade 8 piece. Jessica, thank you for the previous comments. We're confused about comments about intonation. Okay, let's have a little look. Sorry, if you want to prepare the scores for the previous candidate, the next candidate, I'll just have a look at what we said about intonation. What did we say? There were considerable notes that were wrong out of tune, but it was level 3. Let's just have a quick look at what we said. Sorry, Jessica, I'm just scrolling through the text here just to find the comments about intonation. Breath control was perhaps slightly better, but diction was sometimes questionable, yes, especially with the formation of vowels. There are several places where the demands of music were beyond the ability to perform, mostly at the high and low extremes of compass. Handling of sonority was marred by some harsh tone. Yeah, here we go. Particularly in the upper register, there were many notes out of tune, especially at the opening of the gurney. I think here, this is one of those ones where it's about taking the whole descriptor, because you're right, there were some areas of intonation which were poorer, but it is about balancing the breath control and the diction. But also there were some really good sections in this as well. So it's about trying to make that balance, and that's what we were saying before about, you know, in one song there were some, you know, the gurney, we really did notice some really poor, some basic intonation. I would agree with you there, Jessica. But then in other places the intonation was actually slightly better, but also bringing in the other aspects of technical control. It was considered, overall to meet the descriptor for level 3, so it was given a mark of 8. So I think it's about balancing it across the whole recital, but it's also about balancing the words in that descriptor as well. But you're definitely right. There were some issues with intonation in this performance. And Jessica, you make a wonderful point there, because this always comes up when we have our standardisation meetings. So all the team leaders, we sit together, and it's very notable. The colleagues who are singers do really pick out those little things that singers do. I'm a wind player, so when the clarinets and the saxophones and the bassoons and the oboes come up, I'm straight in on the technical stuff, whereas people tend to be a little bit more holistic when they're not. So I do take your point. I absolutely take your point there. But yeah, it's about the whole level descriptor, the whole thing, and across all the pieces in the recital. But thank you again for a really good question. It's good to pull that apart a little bit, so thank you. And hopefully we'll have some more examples of that in the other points. Right, let's sit forward to candidate 3. So let's have a go at this one. So this is candidate 3. Excuse me while I just load up the audio. I'm going to put it through iTunes this time so we don't get any glitches. Just loading now. Okay, here we go. This is candidate 3. Yeah, just take a moment for you just to think about the assessment criteria we talked about, thinking about those grade descriptors that we spoke about, just thinking where does that fit? What are the strengths of that recital? And there are many. And what are there any weaknesses? Are there any areas that you think, hmm, that's maybe not quite as controlled perhaps? Just give you just a moment just to sit with that. Okay, so looking at grid 1, the performance demonstrated assured technical control, particularly in coordination and the demands of the music. They were almost wholly within the ability of the performer. There was less praise when it came to the third descriptor, where it was felt a little more tonal exploitation of tonal contrast was needed. So this was a mark of level 5, but in the middle of that, so 13. Grid 2, there were some small rhythmic errors, but these had only a slight impact on the success of the performance. The playing was fluent, and in this case, we have to consider the candidate's response to the improvisation requirements of the chosen pieces, and on that aspect of the playing, it was noted that some of the fills were rather weak in their invention. On grid 3, here the mark of 12 was awarded at the bottom of level 5. Though there was a high degree of consistency in tempo, there was sufficient use of dynamics to shape the performance. To summarise, we have 3 marks for the 3 grids of 13, 13 and 12, a total raw mark of 38. The recital was again noted as more difficult, so the final mark becomes 57 out of 60. You may be there thinking, okay, drums, tonal exploitation of drums, how do we do that? And there are 2 things that I would just like to draw to your attention, and this is my observation as a team leader for this exam. That firstly, when there is, in a lot of those pieces have a fair degree of articulation marked, and also when you listen to professional recordings, how the drummers, how they are striking the cymbals, how they're striking the snare drum, how they use the fills to create excitement, ghosting notes, that kind of thing. It is possible to create quite a degree of tonal contrast on that, and that fits really nicely into that grid, the grid 1 about tonal exploitation. The other thing I would note as well, and I would draw to your attention, again, this is just through my experience of examining this, is that I think that recording was actually quite good. What we often get, we had the backing track there, the balance of the parts was really good. We could hear both the backing track and we could hear the drums, which was really, really good. What sometimes happens is the mix that centres provide, whether it's recorded through a studio or whether it's done on, one of those Zoom audio devices, or even to some extent done on a phone, maybe with a microphone plugged into the USB-C socket. You just need to be really careful and draw your attention to the fact that examiners will only ever mark what they hear. So if the recording quality that is provided by centres is some way lacking in fidelity or lacking in sort of sonority that you can get with, take a really, really good microphone in the studio versus a plug-in microphone that goes into an iPhone, the quality there of assessing that tonal contrast is going to be quite difficult, and it is very different sitting in the room with a drummer, hearing that. I'm sure that the candidate that played that, hears one thing and the teacher hears one thing, but actually what comes out on the recording is something quite different. So just something to note when you're preparing candidates for this, that the recording quality that you submit is paramount, and you obviously do the best with what you've got, but especially for instruments like drums, where subtlety can be missed, it's really important to try and capture that as best you can using what you've got in schools. And if you haven't got stuff, it's opportunity to speak to head teachers and things to see if there is a way of improving that. But just thought I would draw that to your attention. Going to move now onto the latter part of the training today, and thank you for engaging, thank you for listening, thank you for answering questions. We're now going to do 3 recitals where I would like you to provide a mark for these recitals. So we'll listen to the music, and I would like you to provide a mark for them. We're going to listen to, first of all, to candidate number 4 in the pack. So it's piano, we've got Ayanaldi and we've got Pilling. 2 pieces by Ayanaldi, it looks like. Because it's the 3 pieces, each at grade 7, 6 and 5. The grade 7 piece lasted 2 minutes as a whole, and so the recital as a whole was rated as less difficult. So just to be clear, this is a really good example of where those split levels, trying to find one. So I'll just say that again. So the program consisted of 3 pieces, each at grade 7, 6 and 5. The grade 7 piece lasting less than 2 minutes. So had that have been 4 minutes, we'd be looking at standard difficulty, but we're not. We're looking at 2 minutes, so it's not a substantive part of the recital. Thus, this is a less difficult performance, okay? So what they've asked for us in this part of the training is to listen to the recital twice. So I'll play it on the computer. I hope the sound quality is good for you. I'll give a short break between it and we'll listen to it again and use what we've talked about in the training here today. So go with the level descriptors first for each of the 3. Think, was it assured? Was it convincing? Was it limited? Was it basic? And then go for the mark. And remember, if it meets all of the criteria in that box, we give it the full mark. If it doesn't quite meet that, we're moving down, and we always go from a top down. So we go with the highest mark first and move ourselves down. We're about 15 minutes for each piece. It will take us in total, and then we'll come to a decision. And then, if you want to, if you feel confident to, I'd love you to put your mark in the chat. But obviously, I'm aware that you may not feel comfortable doing that, and that's fine. But I will go through the marks that were awarded with these. So let me just take a moment to load candidate number 4. This is the piano piece. There are 3 scores on 3 PDFs. I hope everyone's got the music ready. So here we go. So this is the first playing of candidate 4. it wasn't immediately clear to me that that was a really, really long recital. So I don't think we'll listen to it all again, but I will allow you time just to reflect now using the grids to what you think an appropriate mark in each of those criterion are. If anybody wants to listen to any part of it again, if you want to pop it in the chat, I'm more than happy to play the opening of one, the end of another one. I don't mind at all, just if you let me know. But I'll just give you a couple of minutes just to come to, in your head or on a piece of paper, just what you think the 3 marks would be and then an overall mark. Remembering, of course, this is a less difficult recital, so there'll be no scaling on this one. So the raw mark will also be the final scaled mark. And of course, if anyone's happy to share their final raw mark in the chat, you are more than welcome. We're all friends here, it's not a problem. But I do appreciate you may not wish to, that's also absolutely fine. Might just play a little opening of that. I was listening to that first one, just a moment of that one perhaps. Okay, so just 1 more minute. I do want to get to the other candidates as well. Just 1 more minute, just to get yourself a mark for each of the 3 criteria. Give it a total mark. There's no scaling for this piece at all. And of course, we're talking raw marks anyway this evening. If you want to share, please feel free. If you don't, also fine. Just while you're coming to your marks there, I'll share with you that the marks I'm going to be sharing with you tonight have been agreed by the whole senior team. So that's the team leaders like myself and the principal examiners from last summer. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to, I'm happy to discuss it with you, but they will not be changing any marks this evening because these are standardised marks from the team. Hopefully the marks will show you the standard expected and how the assessment grids are applied, but the most important thing is the final mark. So if, for example, you give 1 mark for criteria 1 and then 2, and it's not quite the same, it doesn't matter really what route you use to get there. It's the overall mark that is the most important thing. That's the significant one. Okay, so here are the marks for this candidate. So candidate was awarded a total mark of 24. The raw mark was 24 out of 48 and the difficulty level was less difficult, we said, so no scaling. So how was that raw mark of 24 agreed? So for grid 1, which is technical control, the mark was 8, which is the top of level 3. The coordination of the hands and finger work and balance was only at a very basic level. And I think, you know, we talked before about using those words to guide your instinct. This felt very basic, didn't it? At times very robotic, at other times kind of lacking, just lacking anything to move it up to be a bit more convincing. Yeah, Lauren, thank you for that. That's wonderful. Thank you. Yes, but it did, so it was agreed, what did I say? Balancing the hands only a basic level. There was some overuse of the sustain pedal, definitely we heard that. Certainly, as you could hear that in the Iron Audis particularly. Sonority was not well handled, especially in staccato passages, and the playing met the descriptors for the level 3, so the mark of 8 was awarded. So thank you, Lauren, there. Your mark of just tipping up into the band above, not far off at all, so thank you for that. Yeah, level 8, mark of 8. On grid 2, which is accuracy and fluency, there were 1 or 2 noticeable errors and also some less significant ones. There was some fluency in the playing, but there was also some hesitant moments as well. In places, this threatened the coherence of the performance, and we heard that, didn't we? Where it just felt like, whoop, are we going to hold it together or not? And again, the mark of 8 was awarded to the top of that basic balance. Thank you. Apologies, colleagues. I am still in school, as I said, and it closes, but I'll be here till 6 o'clock. I've agreed that. Mark again was an 8. And then for grid 3, which is expressive control, there was inconsistency in the tempo, but there was some shaping in the music. And several opportunities for more expressive phrasing, articulation, dynamics were unfortunately missed. So again, it's a mark of 8. So 3 8s, 24. There is no scaling for this performance at all because it is less difficult. And yeah, quite a typical performance of that kind of standard of where, you know, you've got a kid that can play one of the Einaudi pieces quite well, but the other pieces around that definitely didn't feel quite as, you know, didn't really feel like it was that balanced program in the sense of what the player could perform. It felt like they got the Einaudi one locked in, but the other ones felt a bit like, especially the last one, kind of thrown in. The first one, not the same level of difficulty. So yeah, a bit of a mixed bag, that one, but yeah, very typical of those sorts of performances. Yeah, thank you so much, Jessica. The recording will be available as well, so if you want to catch up on the other candidates, please do, and I appreciate your comment there. Thank you. Right, we jump on to candidate 5. So this is, oh, we've got some bassoon. That's exciting. So let's just see how long this one is. So this, yeah, so again, we'll listen to it once, and if you want any pieces, it's absolutely fine. So this is Telemann grade 7 and Goffrey grade 8. The grade 8 is more than 4 minutes long, so this is a more difficult recital. So remember, when we're doing this, we mark first, top down, 3 grids total, and then we scale at the end. And again, if you've got questions about this, please absolutely feel free. Let's go ahead and listen. Do you want to prepare the music now? We've got 2 PDFs for this one of the 2 pieces. Excuse me, I'm just loading up the bassoon. Okay, and here we go. Thank you for listening to that bassoon recital there. So again, just give you a few minutes just to jot down a mark for the three grids. Remember, from top down, use the words on the left to the basic, limited, etc. Use those on the left and arrive yourself at a mark. This is a more difficult recital, so remember the raw mark here will be scaled at the higher level. If anybody wants any parts of that again, feel free. I do recognise, certainly in the second piece, quite hard to listen to specific pieces, but if there is a little section you'd like, I'm more than happy to play it. Just one more minute. And we'll still have time for the trumpet performance next. Okay. So marks for the three grids often belong to the same level, even if they're not all the same. In this case, we find that the marks for grids 1 and 3 are at level 4, whereas the mark for level 2 is at the lower end of level 5. Let me give you some more detail. For grid 1, the technical control we felt was both convincing in some respects, including coordination and breath control, but there are a few places where the demands of the music are beyond the current ability of the performer, especially towards the end of the variations. Intonation is a serious problem, and it has to be said that there are more than a few notes out of tune, and tone quality is somewhat variable, especially in the more rapid passages. These deficiencies bring the mark down to the bottom of level 4. Again, like people felt before, probably a mark of 8 in that basic. This one's just tipping up into the next band. For grid 2, we noted a few slips in pitch and rhythm. The playing was reasonably fluent despite the occasional very slight hesitation or omission. The fluency seemed to take the playing up to the lower end of level 5, so the mark awarded here was a mark of 12. In grid 3, the playing was considered to be confident and engaging, with only a few minor inconsistencies of tempo. There was some use of dynamics and phrasing and articulation, but again, opportunities were missed. The early part of the second piece did have some character, almost failing at level 5, but this was less obvious in the Telemann, so the mark awarded was 11, the top of level 4. So the total raw mark here is 32, which becomes 48 out of 60 when scaled. So grid 1, technical control is convincing in some respects, but there are issues with the intonation. Grid 2, few slips in pitch and rhythm, reasonably fluent, but grid 3, definitely it felt, when you listen to that recital, it did feel like the candidate was really trying to put some bit of personality, and it was definitely confident. That word comes through, certainly in the second piece, that sort of sense that they've got, that they're trying to really capture that. And the commentary there, yeah, the early parts of it did have some character, but again, it's just where it balances with that first piece, so that's that best fit again. So total mark of 32 becomes 48 when it is scaled. If anyone has any questions, do feel free to put that in the chat for me, and I'm happy to answer it. If not, we'll move on to the last performance. We've got perfect just amount of time to do the trumpet performance. Very rare to hear a bassoon performance, so it's really nice to be able to share that with you today, because we do get, as I said before, mainly singers and pianists. So it's lovely to be able to share with you the that bassoon performance there. So really, really nice. Good. So here is the last performance this evening. So this is the third one that you're going to assess yourselves. This one then is a trumpet piece by Anteil and Moskowski and Bernstein. All of these being grade 8. So this will be a more difficult recital. Just reading through the commentary here because it's got... Just make sure I'm giving you all the text. This submission is by a trumpeter who performed the 3 pieces. Difficult to more difficult. It extended to 8 3/4 minutes. And again, so yeah, we won't have time to listen to it twice, but if you want any pieces, again, do feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to do that. So as we move on, this is candidate 6. You've got 3 scores. In fact, you've got the other PDF, which is the performance of the PAS form as well, should you wish to glance at that one. But get your scores ready. Give you just a minute to do that, and then we'll play the piece. Okay, so here we go with the trumpet recital. This is candidate 6 in your packs. We'll listen to the first piece, second piece, and third piece, and then we'll discuss. Thank you. Does appear to be very quiet. I hope you can hear it. Great. We'll just take a moment just to finalise the marks there for criteria 1, 2 and 3, and then we'll have a quick look at this. This was a grade 8 recital, all 3 pieces, so overall will be scaled as more difficult. And then I'll just wrap up the session. And again, as always, if I've said it throughout the training today, please put any questions you have in the chat. And then when we finish, we will do anything we can to answer those. Just 1 minute, and then I'll read you the marks. Okay, the marks agreed by the senior examining team for this recital were as follows. For grid 1 was a 9, for grid 2 was an 8, and for grid 3 was a 9, making the total raw mark 26 out of 48, which is raised to 39 out of 60 by the difficulty level scaling. The main reasons why a higher mark was not possible for grid 1 were reservations over breath control and pitching some of the individual notes, which was not always clear and precise. There were 1 or 2 places, and I'm sure you heard this in the performance, where the demands of the music were beyond the ability of the performer. The tone quality was convincing at times, except some moments in the uppermost register. For grid 2, we noted several errors in pitch and rhythm. They did have some impact on the success of the overall performance. However, there was still a reasonable degree of fluency despite the occasional hesitation, for example at bar 24 of the Bernstein. Fluency was also compromised a little by the late production of some of the notes. There was consensus that this was level 3 for this grid, and so a mark of 8 was awarded at the top of that level. For grid 3, tempi were reasonably consistent with just 1 or 2 lapses. Dynamics needed greater attention, but there was some effective articulation in the second piece. There was a fairly successful level of communication with 1 or 2 less successful moments, leading to a mark of 9 being awarded, as steered by that third descriptor. So in sum, the marks for the 3 grids were 9, 8 and 9, giving a raw mark of 26 and a final scaled mark of 39. One final point. We've had a range of final marks from 60 down to 24. So out of all 6 pieces we've had a mark of 60 and we've had a mark of 24 and all between. It's pleasing that this does give us a reasonably accurate picture of the mark spread, but we would not want to give the impression that the final marks below 24 are never awarded. Though it is fairly rare, some submitted work does reach level 2, if only in 1 grid. These submissions that have been used for this training day were all early among the work received for this component and were therefore available for us to use at the standardisation meeting of senior examiners, which is sometimes held before the final date of submissions received by Pearson. However, we doubt very much that there has been much loss by the absence of these very low mark recitals. When these appear, they tend to be relatively easy to mark. In contrast, we've hoped that you have heard today some examples which reveal the way that many of these sort of mid-entries are assessed with recognition of their positive as well as their slightly less positive qualities. So that brings us to the end of the training. And I hope you've had an opportunity today to hear how the marks have been awarded, how we apply the mark scheme, and how you can start to really work with your candidates and centres, and that's the most important thing. Thank you very much, Colton, for your question. Is it uncommon to see marks in the middle of a level range? I feel like mostly being the top or the bottom of level range. No, it is not uncommon to see marks in the middle there. It's just that the pieces that the team selected for these just tended to be at the top or the bottom. Remember, if a mark achieves all of the bullet points in the criterion, it gets the full one. If it's slightly less, then we would be looking to the middle one. So it's only when it gets to the bottom one, it's where you look. So if you like that one there was a mark of 9, you might just look to the one below it and think, okay, if it was 1 mark lower, it would be a mark of 8. Well, that feels a bit harsh. So 9 feels right. But similarly, the mark of 10 is pushing towards the 11. So it is just about balancing it. But yeah, absolutely, it's not uncommon to find the middle. And when you have candidates work back, you'll see that the middle mark is often used as well. But thank you for the question, Colton. That's a really good question. Yeah, thank you. Um, I'll keep the chat open. Just I'm aware it's 6 o'clock. Just a couple of things I wanted to draw your attention to. I will keep the chat open if anyone wants to put any questions in there. But we said this before. Subject advisors are available throughout the year, so please use them. Especially sending to the music team these questions about difficulty levels and programs. They're more than happy to help you with that. If you wish to find out more, the website, as you know, has got plenty on it, especially the new Professional Development Academy where you find courses like this. And then finally, just to say, you will probably have already had, if you haven't, you will have it soon, a feedback thing. We would really appreciate feedback on the training tonight to help make these events as good as possible. And that is everything. Thank you very much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday, whatever it is you're doing. I hope the snow, wherever you are, is subsiding. It's certainly not snowing here in Lewisham, but yeah, take care and we'll see you all soon. Thank you.